Well, hello there, my lovelies, and welcome to Erica's Magical Projects. I am Erica, and I'm going to show you some of the magical projects that I've been working on. This week, I'm going to look at socks, why handmade socks are intrinsically magical, and how you can deliberately make them more so. But first, let's go outside.
Well, welcome to the place where I live. I live by the sea. I would say I'm very lucky, but it's not luck. I made it happen. I made it happen by magic. So if you don't believe in magic, I'm living evidence that it does work. It doesn't make you fly, doesn't give you superpowers, but it does put the odds in your favour. I'll talk about the art of blagging a little bit later on this channel, but magic and blagging kind of come hand in hand. And if you come from England, you know what blagging is, or if you've ever been to a festival. Anyway, welcome to the sea. Dun, dun, dun. So the reason that I like to have two projects on the go is so that, you've always got that project where you have to clear the room, get the family out of the way, you're going to take over the entire house, and it's going to be terrible. Well, my tarot tabard is going to be one of those. So I'm just going to leave that at home and deal with that when I'm at home and I've got a day to myself. But I do like to have always a project that you can shove in your bag and take with you. And as it's sock week, I'm taking my socks with me. So please do enjoy this outdoors sock knitting montage. Well, this is very wonderful to see. The first signs of spring. It's only January and here we are, little buds bursting through the ground.
After all that outdoor knitting, I was able to finish a pair of socks. How exciting! Let me show you. This is my first pair of socks that I've made for myself out of my own hand-spun yarn. I started off with 200 grams of sock weight yarn. I didn't really know how much I'd need, but I've ended up with a pair of socks and loads of yarn, loads of extra yarn. So that's exciting, which is a good job because something's happened, which lets me show you the chaotic nature of crafting and why a witch and a crafter walk on the edge of chaos and order with every stitch. One of my socks is a beautiful striped blue and purple sock, which is what I intended. The other is also a beautiful sock, but it's a little bit on the purple side and is not very stripy. This is called colour pooling, where the colours are meant to be stripy or meant to be in a pattern, but they've kind of accidentally ended up a little bit too much of the same colour in one place. This happens with randomness. You get patterns in randomness. So my socks have pooled a little bit and they aren't really a perfect pair. But I'm never adverse to an odd sock, especially as a witch. So I'm not going to make another sock, even if I wanted to, even if I can. It just goes to show that a little bit of planning before you start making something can sometimes stop you ending up with this situation. I should have really looked ahead because the rest of this wool is stripy. The other socks I'm making this month are going to be made out of sock yarn from a shop, like this lovely stuff. I'm making a lovely pair of socks out of this. This is called a raspberry cake from Drops. Oh, look, it's cute. When I make this, it makes me want to eat raspberry cake. It makes me hungry. It's absolutely beautiful. That's one of the socks I'm making. Here is a pair of socks I made at the end of December. Every year after I make a huge pile of Christmas presents, I always like to take a little bit of time and make something for myself, because crafters often make things to sell and make things for gifts, but they never make enough things for themselves. So I made this pair of socks for myself and was fairly happy with them, except they've got a funny stripe going down the middle there. So I'm kind of on a quest to find how to get rid of this funny stripe. This is another pair of socks that I made at the end of December, and these ones are made out of sock yarn scraps, which pleases me greatly. These are toe up, which was exciting, a new technique I hadn't tried. If you're a sock knitter, you know that there's so many different types of ways of making socks that you could endlessly follow pattern after pattern. I really am on the quest for the perfect sock pattern for myself. Watch this space. So I'm going to talk about energy. I'm going to use the word energy, but I don't really like it because it's a very specific term that physicists use. And I love science. I love physics. I love biology and chemistry and all the wonderful science around us. It is absolutely fascinating to find out more about the physical world that we live in. But there's lots that science doesn't know and can't explain. Yet I do believe, and I know with my heart, that I think science will explain this stuff that I'm experiencing, and it's not just me, but lots of people experience this through the many, many eons that people have been alive. They have called it prana, they have called it chi, they've called it the force, if you're into Star Wars, the force that moves through us, the amazing energy that you know when you see a dead thing, you know that it's gone, something's gone, and you know that when something's alive, you can see the life in it. That's the life force, that's the energy. Now, I perceive that in my body like I perceive light, and I don't really know what part of my body it is that I perceive it in. I'm assuming it's my brain, some kind of part of my nervous system, but I think there is more to be discovered here, and I think science will find it. But when I talk about energy, that's what I'm talking about, this amazing life force, and I perceive it as a golden sparkly lights that dance around. When I close my eyes, I can see it, and with practice, with daily practice, most people can make those golden sparkly dancing lights behind your eyes start forming shapes. And once you start getting them to form shapes, then your brain's doing something. Your brain's doing something very interesting that the ancients have done many times before. You form a pentagram in your mind, well, you've done something very magical. Magic is the intention, then putting it into the world. And so, with that in mind, let's make our socks more magical. Why are handmade socks intrinsically magical? Okay, I'm going to start off with this amazing pair of socks. I made these in November. These are for my son. He's got big old feet and he's growing up and he's about to leave, go out into the world and be an adult away from me. So I'm covering him with as many of my stitches as I can so that when he's away from me, he can wrap himself in something from his mum and remember that he's not a little creature on his own. He belongs to the tribe that made his clothes. When I set out to make these, I said, if you are lost, may you find your way back home. If you are lost, may you find your way back home. And I said, each stitch of this sock is that prayer that my son will find his way back home if he is lost. People have been studying the ebb and flow of the energy around us for many thousands and thousands of years, and the architecture of that is still around us in things like prayer flags, prayer wheels. Every time a little prayer flag flutters, it sends the prayer up into heaven. The repetition of the motion is part of the magic, a gentle repetition through time, through space. That's what we are, creatures that move through time and through space. And so, as I knit, I am moving gently a repeated pattern, a repeated intention through time and through space. Not just once, not just twice, not just a tiny prayer, but how many stitches do you think is in one of these socks? I calculated about 5,000. So if that's true, that's 10,000 stitches, each one of them in a prayer on his little feet. Okay, they're not little. And then to make these socks even more magical, when I have finished them, I take them and I hold them in my hands. Your magical centre is your heart, and then the palms of your hands where you create. And I hold these gifts in my hands, and I push all the sparkly magical energy that I can feel moving through my hands into them, and I say, if you are lost, may you find your way back home. And I know that that is now charged with that intention. 10,000 times and more. That's the magic. Now, he's a sensible young man and he doesn't believe in any of my nonsense. But it doesn't matter, because magic works even if you believe in it, or even if you don't. That's why it's magic. So join me next week when I'll be talking about how I'm getting on with my sewing project. But until then, remember, everything handmade is magical.